Okay, we are live. My name is Attorney Vince Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm joined this evening with my co-host, Miss Cassandra Woodard. Miss Woodard, how are you this evening?
I'm doing good.
Good. And it looks like we have a guest this evening. Is it Dina? Miss Dina?
You're
Miss Dina,
muted.
hold on, let me see if I can. Yeah, Miss Dina, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
I'm sorry. Yes. Hi, how are you?
Doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good, good. What state are you from?
I'm in Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Minnesota. Is it cold there?
Oh, yes. It's freezing.
It's like 45 and it's unbearable here in California. What is it there?
Wow. It is, I think, about 7 degrees right now. We're used to that, but I mean, it was beautiful. It was blue skies and everything, but pretty cold. Yeah, it's been pretty brutal.
Cassandra, can you imagine 7 degrees?
No, never.
It was like 42 this morning and I had to break out the overcoat.
I used to live in Florida and I didn't leave. Fort Myers was too hot and Minnesota's too cold.
Did you grow up in Florida?
No, I was only there for a few years and then I ended up moving back to Minnesota. I mean, there was more, for me here. So
Is that where you're from originally, Minnesota?
No, I'm actually from Michigan, but I moved to Minnesota when I was about 25 or so, and I've been here ever since. So similar, but much cold, a little bit colder than Michigan. I'm from Ann Arbor. So.
Okay. So this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS. So I assume that you've had some CPS issues.
Oh, yeah, a lot. This started March of last year, end of March, early April. It is of course, I couldn't tell you everything in this one show, but this is a medical kidnapping. And my son, who's 15 years old, is severely autistic and he has comorbid diagnoses. So he's got other things that are going on. And actually, just to let you know, I'm in visitation with him and my daughter is here. So he's usually a 3-on-1 care. So hopefully he won't have any issues, but if that happens, then hopefully I don't have to go to, help out or whatever. But with that being said, I mean, he ends up, he's aggressive. So he can be self-injurious. And that's what kind of landed me in the ER a few times because of the neurological problems that he has that they don't want to address. I've had to continuously try to seek the medical help. And the last time I ended up on the side of the road, and that was end of March, and he was aggressive and he was hitting his head because he has pain in his head. Well, that's what I'm sure it is, and they don't want to say, they want to say it's sensory. But I had to pull over and had to call EMS. And that hospitalization, they ended up holding him there. And so we do have this problem in Minnesota where, our crisis homes really can't contain the children here. They're not really trained. They drop them off at the ER, and then we have to relieve them by coming to get them when we had signed a contract for them to care for our children. So, it is just a really political case. And that's why I'm kind of, got my glasses on and my hat and stuff, because it involves like, hospitals and stuff like that. So, he ended up being held for about 7.5 months. And he declined in that time. He was in the ER for a certain amount of time, and then he ended up in another hospital. So, and under multiple antipsychotics and neuroleptics, he declined quite a bit. So he gained about 120 pounds within that time. And they were really nervous that they ended up discharging him because they actually documented in the medical records that he is declining. So we cannot hold him here anymore. And dad is involved. So dad has temporary custody And now they're trying to find residential for him. They actually have found it. And so with that, I'm really frightened of the residential because he hasn't done very well in the residentials before. I mean, he's. Oh. Where's Hannah? Okay. Okay. Hold on. Hold on. I will be right back. Okay. I'm trying to.
Okay. I think this might be the first time that we've had a guest who's been on during a visit.
I think so.
Yeah. You know, there was somebody that was going to come on the show tonight and provide a link for our guest. Was that Alexandria Napier?
Yes, it was.
That's quite a hell of a link that she put up there. If you're watching this show, everyone, copy and paste this link right here and go to it. I think it's going to have some very valuable information that Miss Napier has found and sharing with us. It's going to give you a lot of insight into CPS. Thank you, Alexandria, for keeping that promise. Oh, here's another link she has. Here's another link that she has. Okay, I think we have Deanna.
So, like, right just now, things have been happening pretty good, but I mean, they just signed a court notification. Well, we put out a court notification so I could get visitation with my son without dad being the visitation person. So they didn't want, the prosecutor really actually objected to my family, like my daughters and my mom being the visitation person. But the judge said, no, we're going to approve it. And so that just went through. So I get to spend a little more time with them, which is really good, as long as one of my family members are here. But at this point, I'm kind of have questions about where I can go with this, because obviously I don't really agree with the residential, just because I know he's high needs, but I know what happens in these homes. And he is one that thrives off of his swimming lessons, his, going to the parks. And a lot of times these places, that doesn't happen.
Well, what questions did you have for me this evening?
Well, since dad, we're in agreement with, dad knows that he has some health concerns and stuff too. We're wondering, if we needed, like, if I gave dad like full custody, am I able to do that under a petition? And would that suffice so that he isn't like under CPS Win?
If you were here in California, if CPS or if the juvenile court has already taken jurisdiction, that's not something that you could effectively do by yourself. Now, you could do it if all parties agreed, including the judge. You could do that.
Oh, so the judge agree as well.
Oh, yeah. Now, if you wanted to do something like that, you would have had to have done it before the CPS case was filed. If you're in California, I don't know the law in Minnesota, but assuming it's similar,
Okay.
you have to do these things before the case is filed. And after the case is filed and the court has taken jurisdiction and declared the child a ward of the court, to do anything like that, you'd have to have the agreement of everyone, including the judge. And, sometimes people agree to things, parties agree to things and the attorneys agree. And sometimes the judge doesn't agree, because the judge is ultimately responsible. And it sounds like, your child, you have a special needs child, and there's a lot of complications, factually and legally with respect to, having a case regarding that type of child. How old is he?
He's 15, so
15?
he's a lot bigger now. But the problem is the way that everything's went has been so it's been really criminal. I mean, I to the point where they've like sent court notifications that were, you know, a bunch of lies. They set me up with my hospital. My first visitation at one of the hospitals, they said I came late, which I didn't. And then they said I caused my son's aggression, which that's not what happens with autism. We don't cause our children's aggression. He has, you know, and if it was even with autism, but he has something where, you know, he starts, it's almost like an autoimmune. And they don't like that when you talk about autoimmune conditions or you try to get naturopathic treatments. They don't like that. You know, of course, my petition says, oh, she went and tried to get chiropractic treatments. It's supplements. It's primarily vitamins, like supplements to help him with his autoimmune issues, you know, but, you know, I've always said, you know, I let the providers, I'm not trying to pretend to be a provider. I just went to different providers because the American Medical Association providers couldn't do anything else. They couldn't figure this out, and they still can't. He still is pounding on his head saying it hurts, and he knows when it hurts, you know. So, you know, I just, you know,
Well, naturally, there have probably been medical people who have tried to evaluate the situation. What are they saying?
Well, we have the ones that are a little more, you know, the naturopathic doctors that say that, yeah, he does have that. I mean, any American Medical Association tests are coming out negative, but you really can't, with these conditions, it's really hard to get any, you're not going to get usually aren't going to get a positive MRI because only 29% you can detect that with. So, you know, I mean, I know CPS is not medical, and so, but they do link with the medical system. So it's kind of like, you know, it's really hard to fight this, you know.
Does your son wear any protective gear?
Yeah, he wears like helmets.
Hmm. Hmm.
He has to be secured in the cars because, you know, he can become aggressive in the cars. But, you know, I'd love to work with these, you know, and it seems like every attorney I get is kind of seems like they're siding with the prosecutor. So then I'm kind of going, well, how am I ever going to get anywhere when, you know, I don't have any trust in the system because they're setting up each visit to try to make it look like I'm late, trying to make it look like I'm causing my son's aggression, and which is not true. And I carry video everywhere I go, so they can't prove it. But it doesn't matter whether I prove it or not, because it's like it doesn't exist. The proof doesn't exist to them. Even if I show them, I mean, I've had to complain about, you know, a nurse at the hospital because he set up the whole last visit before my son was discharged. And he said, I caused him to get scared. You know, he got aggressive. I was praying with him near the window and I was redirecting him when he became aggressive that time. He snaps in and out of these all the time. He has to be restrained at times. But, you know, I can redirect him sometimes. Sometimes you can't. But they set that whole night up and stated, you know, that he had to call security, all this stuff. And I'm like, you know that I'm not gonna not video the last day of, you know, my visitation because I know you've done that. The hospital has done this before, so I'm gonna cover myself to make sure they don't continue to commit fraud. And so, yep, that's sure what he did. That night he documented a letter that stated that, yeah, I caused my son's aggression. He sent it to the executive children's staff and then tried to remove my visitation rights.
Who's
And
it? The social worker?
uh,
The social worker?
well, no, this is what the nurse did, wrote up a letter
Okay.
and stated that I was there and I caused my son's aggression. And then he sent it to the executive children's staff because they are part of this whole medical, you know, holding. And it was primarily, that was their way of trying to take away my rights. So as long as they can put a court notification out saying mom did this and mom did that, they're going to try to remove my visitation rights so that later on in court that will look bad on me, you know. But they didn't realize that I had videotaped that whole night. So I ended up having to go report this because I'm not gonna, you know, And it's like, it doesn't even happen. It's like nobody wants to help. Everyone's scared. It's just really difficult because, like, I don't know what's next. And I feel like there's nobody on my side. And I almost feel like even the attorneys are. And it's just because there's been so much trauma with this case.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, who's been taking care of your son his whole life?
Me.
You?
Mhm.
And only you, or you and his father?
Dad has stepped in, but he wasn't there all the time. He would take him for, a couple days or whatever, but I was the main caretaker. I've never been abusive. I've never, there's nothing. They literally they had a child abuse doctor on my petition. And I'm like, I don't know who this doctor is and why he's on there. And he's never even seen my child before. So I don't know. I know in these cases, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Abuse doctor, even if it's medical neglect, what they call medical neglect.
So, Mr. Davis, wouldn't you be able to like use that as a strategy to fight in court that this whole time she's been the caregiver, and now they're.
I believe so. It depends on what stage of the case she's at and the attorney she's working with. If your parental rights haven't been terminated, which I don't think they will be, you always have an opportunity to go into court and to do something. In California, there's a case that says that at every hearing, placement and visitation, or custody and visitation, is always an issue. So you don't even have to file a 388 petition. Theoretically, I've heard many judges say, well, you got to file a 388, and that's okay. But, it's something that you should be striving and fighting every time you go to court. And if you don't go to court, I don't know what Minnesota is called, but Minnesota might have something akin to California, where you can always ask the judge to change some type of order, as long as you can prove that it's in the best interest of the child and there's been some type of change.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you having the child placed with you should always be an issue, and it's something I think that you can always fight. Now, whether your attorney thinks that or not, I don't know. He or she knows the case better than I do, but that's something you're gonna have to discuss with him.
Yeah, and I've went from personal. I had an ICWA attorney, and then I changed to a private, and then I just couldn't afford to go to trial. It was going to cost me over $10,000, so I ended up actually getting the court-appointed attorney back, which was actually better because she knew the case better, and she was actually more of a gem than I've just been, kind of told the court-appointed attorneys aren't the best ones to have, and I don't know, if that kind of stuck with me. But she said that she would continue to do the case, even though ICWA's status hadn't been proven, that there was no Indian heritage found. So,
Well, usually that's proven by a blood test or history of the family. Do you believe you're part American Indian?
yeah, but I think it's too far. And like it's like great grandparents for me. So for my son, they would go by like blood. I don't know whether either it's blood quantum or I think blood quantum is the percentage, and then some tribes will just do it if they, if you have a little and they know. But like my tribes are more from Michigan, so they may even be in Canada, so then that changes things too. So if they're not in America, so I mean they didn't find them. That's the main thing, and so they tried to contact all the tribes I gave them, but it didn't pan out. Find it, but anyway, she took it. It would have been a lot better if I had gotten that, because my chances would have been a lot, stronger of winning this. But it looks like if I thought whether, the thing is they're like really creating there's no residential treatment centers. That's the issue. And with my child, because he's one of the most severe, he's been turned down by all of them all over the country. So it's hard. They haven't been able to find anything for him. They were searching for out-of-state residential, even despite our objections to that the whole time. And we were like, we need to find something local. I don't want him to be transferred out of state, but they still, they didn't really care about my rights. They didn't invite me to any of the meetings. I couldn't be with the top executive staff. I was just the parent, so they went ahead and had their meetings, looked for multiple places every day and never found anything. So I almost feel like God was working in that, and that he shut the door on a lot of those things. So they had to find something local. And so they really are like building something for him here.
Who's the caretaker right now? Your daughter?
The dad.
Oh, the dad. Okay.
For custody. And he agrees. He doesn't want him to be placed somewhere when he's sick. He's got respiratory issues that just popped up when he was in the hospital. So because they've got him on a page of medications, he's started having like a respiratory issue.
Here's the thing. Does the dad have any specialized training or education to take care of a child with autism?
No.
Then why? What is it about you that they won't give you the child?
I don't. I think they're retaliating because this child has been, like, in November he was in the hospital, and they caused him to go into. He had a reaction because they took away his Xanax, and so they when I came back, he was scaly and he was scared. So he went into withdrawal. And I said to the doctor, I said, before I left, we went over medications and you told me that you don't do benzos in your ER. And I said, I wasn't expecting you to write a prescription for him. What I wanted you to do is maintain that prescription so that he was well. And that's what you do as a doctor. You make sure that the patient is safe. That means if they're on that, you have to follow that prescription. You have to follow that order. She didn't. She just took away the medications and put him in withdrawal. So when I come back, my son's falling apart and I'm going, what did you do? Did you not do what I asked you? And maybe it was because I told her that you need to make sure you do that. She got mad. I don't know. But you don't take it out on the child. So I get back and yeah, he was just, and I look on the med list, wasn't there.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Yeah. Because benzos are one of the things that you can die from withdrawals of.
Right.
Besides alcohol, heroin, and benzos, those are like the three things you can die from withdrawals of. And that's ridiculous that a doctor took him off that just cold turkey.
Yeah. And if you see the pictures, it's crazy. I was living. How? I work in the medical field. I'm a certified medical coder. I build this, I code this stuff, but I never thought, that they would literally take that. I've never seen any doctor do that before. So I think that could have been the retaliation because they put that in my petition. Oh, she came and she dropped him at the ER on this date. I'm like, yeah, I dropped him we don't come to the ER. We don't come to the hospital to try to bother them or anything. We come for medical care. Mental health is medical care. And there's a code that goes to that. And even the media, they've done reports on this and they seem to want to say, oh, mental health, this is not where these kids belong. They don't belong here. Well, you're going to tell me where my son belongs then? Because there isn't PCA here. There isn't caretakers. They keep leaving for the severe. We can't keep them. And so tell me, do you have a program that you recommend? They never do. So that's why we end up in the ER. And there's they want us to come back. I have another daughter and he can be, if he's dangerous, I'm like, you need to find a psych bed and figure these medications out, because I don't want to endanger him or anybody else here. So they called my neglect charge is abandonment. My neglect charge is abandonment and illegal medical cannabis. and Minnesota's really behind in that. He was on a tincture. I wasn't like passing him a bong or anything. This is medicine. I was one of the moms to get autism. I was at the state capitol to get autism as a qualifying condition because these children that are fracturing their skulls need this. It connects in it. A lot of people don't understand what cannabis is. You know, they don't understand that it's a medicine, just like lithium or, you know, just like, you know, any of these other medications that can be toxic. You know, I mean, some of these you have to get blood draws every 3 months, but it is a natural medication. And, you know, we are really behind in Minnesota on that.
Did somebody prescribe the cannabis
Oh,
for
yeah.
a doctor?
Yes, he has a card. So when I look back at the medical records, I looked at the ER note, and the ER note was when we came in and when he got admitted, the ER doctor wrote that he was on illegal medical cannabis. And I went, oh no, so he's the one that stated this. Then I look a little bit farther in the medical records. He had edited that and changed it, that I made a mistake. Well, you know, that mistake cost me, you know, my petition and them stating that he was on illegal. You know, I mean, I would never give my son illegal drugs, you know.
Well, did you have a trial to prove that this was incorrect?
Not yet. I tried to
Wait a minute. When did your case start?
in April.
And you haven't had what they call the jurisdictional hearing yet?
That's not until April. Well, we have March is a pre-trial, and then April is the trial. And so it's because I have tried to go pro se, and so I've been kind of flip-flopping back and forth too, because there's been so much corruption that I've had to go pro se so that I could turn my objections in. Nobody wants to turn my objections in. I couldn't even turn in my evidence to my objections. I have so much of it that it's like my exhibits are like 40 exhibits. You know, I mean.
Well, you know, it's always my opinion, and I don't know the ins and outs of your case, but you know, going pro se is not necessarily a good strategy.
I know. The judge recommended that I don't go pro se, and that he said this, especially in family court, that, you know, there's a lot, and he said he wouldn't even do it. But I listened to him. I put my objection in, and then I ended up obtaining another attorney, you know, with his request. I went back to the but I was like, I couldn't get anything submitted. My court appointed attorney, she should have did that a long time ago.
Well, do you have a court appointed attorney now or private attorney?
I have a court appointed. I mean, my son was on a waiver, and so I worked for him. I quit my job as a medical coder because I needed to take care of him, and I knew he was important, you know, and I couldn't find care. So I ended up with being a waiver. I ended up as a PCA for him, and so I kind of worked for him. And so when he was taken away, my job was primarily stripped from me. So I'm going on like almost a year with no job because I can't find any. I have a break in I have my certification because I thought I might have to go back. But there's that big break in there, and it's not easy to find a job now, you know, so it's just been tough to try to, you know, I've tried to obtain the, you know, private attorneys, and now I'm exhausted. I've exhausted, you know, all of my money, you know, so I ended up, and I think, you know, because, you know, I think she's the right choice. I think the court appointed attorney is the right choice. She thinks that there's not really a whole lot of evidence for them to, you know, she doesn't think at all that they're going to be able to, you know, TPR.
Why do you think the court appointed attorney is the right choice, if I may ask?
What'd you say?
Why do you think the court appointed attorney is the right choice?
I don't know. I just kind of felt it. I don't know. I felt like she really did care, but I don't know. The problem is, you know, that's why I didn't use her in the beginning, but then now she's bringing up things that, now she's saying she's going to submit more things, but I could be wrong. I just don't, I guess I'm a little bit desperate,
Right. You're hopeful. You're being hopeful that the court appointed attorney is doing the right thing. But oftentimes what I see court appointed attorneys do is say that they will submit, they will do, but then when it comes to it, there's nothing submitted. No subpoenas were sent to, subpoenas to social workers or whoever's involved. That's against the parent. That doesn't happen. I haven't seen that happen yet. So again, you need to understand you can't trust anyone that gets paid by the state because they're not going to lose. And unfortunately, there's a lot of parents, especially mothers, who put their emotions on their sleeves and they ruin their own cases, like one we had today. I'm not going to name who, but the sad part is she hired an attorney, Mr. Davis himself, that is, went to court today. I tried to talk some sense into her. Davis tried to talk some sense into her. The judge almost arrested her twice. Why? Because she thinks she knows what she's doing. She thinks that she knows more than Attorney Davis. She thinks that she's priority more than anyone else. And she thinks she can talk over the judge and her attorney because she wants to hold something against the judge for the lawsuit. What she doesn't understand is Attorney Davis, as he explained to her before, is that when you hire an attorney, the attorney speaks for you. You don't just take it upon yourself to think you know what you're doing. And you need your attorney there as just a physical being and not open his mouth. So when I saw that happen today, I actually felt sorry for Davis because he was calm. But what really triggered me, the sadness about this case, is that she actually got upset because Attorney Davis didn't ask the judge, on what terms would you arrest my client? I mean, a grown man who's been doing law for 36 years, seeing the behavior of his client, but yet his client wants him to say under what terms you would arrest my client. And her behavior was so bad before and during the court proceeding. So I needed to bring this out on the table for you, the guest, for everyone watching the shows. Do not think you know more than your attorney. Do not think your strategy is going to work, because if it was working, it would have worked for your ass a year ago. If it hasn't worked for you yet, it's not going to work for you. So you guys need to wise up, wake up. If Attorney Davis himself is in court for my case, if I was in her shoe, I would keep my mouth shut. And thank God that it's Attorney Davis himself is in that courtroom for my case. You guys don't ever think you're above the law or you know more than your attorney. It doesn't work. But then when you screw up your fucking case, then you turn around to attorney and say it's your fault. If I didn't witness this case from beginning to end, I would have fucking believed her. But what I saw today, it's ridiculous. I was out. Oh my God. I literally just got home. Okay? Because it's been such a long day that I couldn't believe that she ruined her case. I'm the biggest advocate for all moms. All moms. But my biggest thing is, you want to win or you want to get your children back. In her mind, she wants to win and get her children back, meaning she wants to win against the Department of Child Services. She wants to show her point to the judge, and she wants to get her kids back. She can't choose from one or the other. Then when I asked her again, why did you hire Attorney Davis to handle your case? She said, because I need him there so they stop bullying me. How in the fuck is that even making any sense? Because they're not going to stop bullying your ass because you have no respect for your attorney and you sure don't have any respect for the judge. So your behavior is what condemns you and what shows that you're not emotionally stable to be around your children. So you guys are giving them the heads up, the upper hand, literally pointing the finger at you saying, yep, we were right, she's crazy. And Mr. Davis is listening to everything I'm telling you guys right now, and he hasn't objected, apparently, because I'm telling you the truth. So wise up and wake up and stop listening to your damn advocates on social media, because those damn advocates are not attorneys and they're misleading you into destruction. So wise up and don't give your ear just to anybody, especially when it's about your children.
Miss Dina, I would have to tell you that you should be working with an attorney and not trying to represent yourself. There's so many things that you don't know that you don't know. Now, you know, one of the things you mentioned earlier was about the objections that you wanted to file, but the attorney wouldn't do it. You know, sometimes, and I don't know what objections you had and if they were valid, but sometimes people want to file things in court that aren't appropriate. Not only are they not appropriate or supported by the law, they actually hurt your case. And you don't want to do that thinking you're helping your case when you're not helping your case. So that's why I say you seriously consider using your attorney.
Well, the parental court report, or and the petition was just a lot of fabricated lies. So I just needed to make it clear that he was. I mean, and I could do that by showing them a card, but there was so much in there that was like, and from what I had gotten advice from another attorney that wrote a book, and she counseled with my attorney. And stated, you need to get those objections in as soon as possible in these medical cases, because, you've got child abuse doctors filing stuff, and, it's really important to get the truth out so that,
But did that attorney do the objections, write the objections for you?
No, I wrote it.
Yes, that's the problem. She told you need objections, which may or may not be good advice. Let's just assume it's great advice. But when it came to the implementation, you probably don't know anything about the Minnesota Evidence Code.
Well, she would have went through it, and
did she review your objections before they were filed?
No, she didn't, because I didn't have the attorney at that point. I had somebody else review them.
Yeah.
For me, and this was an advocate. No, not an attorney.
Okay.
But
right.
Like
I
have an attorney now. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, especially on objections and evidentiary objections, listen to that. Okay, listen to that attorney. I have nothing against advocates. God bless them all. Okay, but when you go to the cardiovascular doctor, do you talk to the candy striper about your heart? Do you talk to the LVN? Do you talk to the RN? Do you talk to the nurse practitioner? Or do you talk to the doctor? Right? I'm sure all of them have their own opinions about your issue. But you gotta, it's like betting on a roulette wheel when you go to Vegas, or playing blackjack or something like that. You got to go with the odds. And the odds are the attorney will know best. Now, what I find a lot, and I've been doing this a long time, that I give an opinion that the client doesn't like. Okay. Does it happen? Yeah, it happens, believe it or not. You know, me and my firm have only done thousands of these cases. And sometimes I'll say something and the person doesn't like it. Now, am I always right? No, I'm not always right. Have I ever been wrong? Yes, I have. But when you're playing the odds, you know, relying on my opinion is a pretty good bet. And that's what you have to do in these situations. You know, the courtroom I was in today, you know, one of the most valuable things that happened in that courtroom for me, in terms of representing my client, is listening to the judge's comments, because the judge actually told the courtroom and the parties on the case where she was coming from.
Mhm.
Now, it wasn't positive for my client, but if you just listen to the judge, you can figure out what you have to do on many occasions to try to win your case.
Mhm.
And a lot of times people go into the courtroom and they're not listening to the judge, not listening at all. You know, many years ago, I attended something called the Trial Lawyers College, something that was founded by Jerry Spence, who happens to be considered by many the greatest trial lawyer ever in this country. And one of the first things that we did, and whenever the group gets together, the first thing they do is a listening exercise. You ever do a listening exercise? You know, when I went to the college, I thought I knew how to listen. You know, maybe I was in my 40s. You know, what are we doing here practicing listening? How ridiculous is that? Well, it turns out it's probably one of the most important things in life.
Mhm.
You don't listen. People don't listen. And listening means more than hearing. It means observing body language, facial expression, things of that nature. Because a lot of time, communication is 85% nonverbal. I'll give you an example. You know, because they use tone, body language, and stuff. Watch this. Hello. 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 I said the same words 3 times. I gave you 3 different messages. You agree? You know why? Because my message was 85% nonverbal. I mean, there was tonality to it and volume, but those were 3 different messages. You got to listen, and they call it active listening. You got to be actively listening when you're in court. You got to be actively listening when you're dealing with your social worker. You got to be actively listening, when you're watching the judge. Look, people are very smart. And when you watch or listen to someone, you're getting a lot of information just from your own human experiences. A lot of people ask me, "Hey, what do I have to do to get my kid back?" Now, I can tell you legally what you might have to do, but that isn't the be all end all. You know, what's the social worker saying or doing outside of the courtroom? What's the judge saying or doing inside the courtroom? You know, fortunately or unfortunately, our society has given judges a lot of power.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people want to go to court and they want to prove the social worker wrong or the judge wrong, or sometimes a little ego gets involved there. And I've told this to people all the time. Look, we're not going to get involved in that. We're going to do what needs to be done to get the child back. We're not here to prove you right or wrong or to clear your name. Now, if you want to clear your name, that's fine too. But if we don't get the child back, don't blame me. Because I ask everyone, hey, what do you want me to do in a case? Well, what do you mean? What do you want out of this case? And a lot of people say, I want to be vindicated and I want to get the child back.
Mm-hmm.
You got to pick one.
Mm-hmm.
You got to pick one. Now, sometimes in the process of getting the child back, you are vindicated, but not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to pick what's your ultimate goal. There's one ultimate goal. And, I just assume when I ask you that you're going to say, I want your child back. I want my child back. You'd be surprised the agendas people have. Everyone doesn't want that as their number one goal. A few nights ago, I think I told a story about a trial I did, and the parent and the grandparent didn't want the child back, but they happened to mislead me and another attorney because they felt ashamed.
Yep.
Okay, I get it. They felt ashamed. But don't assume that everybody that you talk to wants their child back, because it's not true. Okay, well, we're coming to the end of our show. I think we lost our guest. She had to go to attend something. But I want to thank you, Dina, for being on the show this evening and sharing your story with your CPS matter. I would invite you to keep us posted. You seem very knowledgeable, and you've given this, a lot of thought. So,
Was her case in state or out of state?
Minnesota, in
Okay.
Minnesota, yeah. Okay. I want to thank you, Miss Cassandra Woodard, for co-hosting tonight, and I want to thank you, Miss G, for coming off the road and turning on your computer. It's been a long day, I know, for you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be here. Oh, today's Friday. That means tomorrow's Saturday. That means we will be on the show at 9:30 a.m. The new time to accommodate Miss Cassandra and Miss G. Apparently 9 a.m. was too early on a Saturday or Sunday.
Cassandra, do you see how much we love you? We're accommodating you. We're accommodating you, Cassandra. I can't hear you. You muted yourself. You muted yourself.
I said, usually by 9:30, I look at the phone and I'm like, oh, shoot. The show.
I know.
So this time, by 9 o'clock, I'll be like, oh, okay, I made it.
See, we're
See, like I wake up at 9 and I'm like, oh no, the show started already. And I'm all looking like I just popped out of bed. But by 9:30, I should be okay.
Okay,
I got it.
It works for both of us. It works for both of us.
All right. Well, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay.